Okay, Freddie, what's your question?
Okay. Has there been any analysis around what proportion of voters for each of the main parties have died since 2019? So slightly morbid one here.
Slightly morbid and from an anonymous listener. But we're very fortunate in that we have Ben with us today. Ben, is there any analysis?
I got sent this question and I looked at it and I thought, okay, I can't give an answer straight off the bat here. I can't shoot from the hip. I have to go and actually model this quite rightly, of course. And I had a go, and actually, I'll be honest with you, there's some astounding stuff to get from this. How many, the number of dead people. So just to bear in mind, excluding COVID for but a minute, on average, since 2010, since the early 2000s, 600,000 people in Britain die every year. The overwhelming number of that, unsurprisingly, is those over the age of 65. And that does create a lot of churn in our electorate. What proportion of people who've died since 2019? It's actually quite a significant percentage, but I'll get into that in a minute, because we are beginning to notice this when we compare to the EU referendum. So when you look at some opinion polls, you can find what all Britons think, and then you can split it by Leave and Remain voters. And when you look at the Leave and Remain splits now, you find that averaging them out doesn't actually get you the response that's the all Britons response anymore. The long and short of it is that when you only look at Leave and Remain voters, these splits, they don't exactly match up. They don't exactly make as much sense as they used to. We are a very much changing country. So I'm going for my spreadsheet now, actually. Here's something that kind of astounded me, and I double-checked the figures here. 81% of those over the age of 65, as of the 2010 election, are now dead. They're now no longer with us. 26% of those that voted for David Cameron's Tories in 2010 are no longer with us. 23% of those who voted Gordon Brown's, New Labour in 2010 are no longer with us. These are pretty substantial figures, so you've seen quite a lot of churn. To answer the listener's question, the anonymous, morbid listener's question, 11% of those that voted for Boris Johnson's Conservatives are now dead. 4% of those that voted for Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party in 2019 are now dead. And that's pretty significant. Since the 2019 election, 2.3 million people who voted in that last election are now no longer with us. Of those, it's around about 1.3, 1.4 million Conservatives, and only about 500,000 Labour voters. Now, some of you may think, well, let's look at the EU referendum. Let's see, what does that mean? Do we now have a mandate, a moral mandate to reverse Brexit, or whatever idea you might have? I looked at that as well, and you should always remember that amongst those in their 40s and 50s, there was a significant number for Leave as well, and those in their late 30s were also quite split on it. So when you look at the number of people who voted Leave who have since died, we're looking at 2.4, 2.5 million, and amongst those who voted Remain who've since now died, that's like 1.3 million. Pretty big gap, I grant you that, but when you add it to the column, still, if you only get those who voted in the last referendum who are still alive and had them vote the same way now, only those who are still alive, Britain would have still voted Leave, albeit only just. So if you take away the dead people from the EU referendum, it's 15 million for Leave, 14.8 million for Remain. That is still, yes, a very tight margin, but still a slim majority for Leave. So you know what? When we look at opinion polls, when we look at change since the last election, we do need to appreciate that when you compare to 2019, around 1 in 10 of those that voted last time are no longer with us. And it's changing the arithmetic pretty substantially. So much so it is naturally a net benefit to Labour.
This is absolutely fascinating, Ben, and thank you so much for doing the research and really crunching the numbers for us. And I think we should have a piece on this on the New Statesman website going into this so we can refer back to it. That raises a really interesting question for the Conservatives and Rishi Sunak and when he holds the election. Obviously, we should say that people can change their votes, and as people have got older since 2010 or 2019, their political opinions and values and allegiances may have changed as well. But we do know that the Conservative vote was very concentrated in the older age bracket. So does that mean that the longer Sunak delays holding an election, holding it in autumn as opposed to in May, they could be losing voters through natural causes, as it were.
So something to consider is that though, of course, a lot of people are dying, you are having a lot of people aging. You are having a lot of people that once they age, once they graduate, once they become something new, something different, their politics do inevitably change. Mine changed once I went to university. Mine changed once I left home. And you are living in an age that, though millions of people are dying, 10% of the electorate have died since 2019, you do have 10+% who have since joined the electorate and who are probably going to be engaged electors. So the net change for the Conservatives, though they have lost X million and though Labour have only lost X 100,000, and it's a pretty substantial gap, you do have to remember it's kind of offset by the fact that people are naturally, it still happens, although not by much, people are naturally becoming a little bit more conservative as they age. That still happens, but the link isn't as great as it used to be. And then you have more people joining the electorate, and those people who are turning 18, turning 20, turning whatever, though of course they lean Labour, it is something worth considering that today's strata of 18 to 24-year-olds aren't perhaps as enthused about voting for Keir Starmer's Labour Party as they were for Corbyn's. There is a loss of enthusiasm to vote, and I think there's a bit more of, I wouldn't say diversification, but the voters are going searching amongst young people. A lot of it is apathy. A lot of it is like, I don't really care. A lot of it, you after 14 years of the Conservatives, what's the point in voting now? We've really reached that peak amongst a certain demographic, but I don't think it's that huge. But nevertheless, the numbers I gave to you today, the damning losses for the Conservatives in terms of deaths when you compare to Labour, it is offset slightly by the arrivals, the aging process, and such. Like, it does make us we are becoming more slightly left wing as a country, but it's only by a few percentage points.
Ben, do we know how many people who would vote for the Conservatives might die between May and October or December?
Between now and December, you could see, if you assume the average death rate is 10,000 amongst those over the age of 65, and then around about 1,000 plus for everyone underneath, you are looking at the Conservatives probably losing between now and the next election upwards of around 80,000 voters, and Labour losing 20 to 30,000 voters.
Could that have a material difference?
No. I think the material difference is the net change in popular support right now. The huge swings against the Conservatives in every corner of the country, across all age groups, really.
Thank you so much, Ben.
Thanks so much for watching. We'd love to know what you think. Please make sure you leave your comments below. And if you enjoyed watching this podcast, you can watch more of our videos on our YouTube channel. And don't forget to like and subscribe.